Hello everyone, hang on. Hello everyone, now that my camera issues have been overcome, this is VDiffuser and welcome to... This is VDiffuser, welcome back to Let's Play Great Ace Attorney. In our last episode, we started to get some investigation after we found out that Gina Lestrade actually lied in the trial all those months ago with Magnus McGilded. And we found out that I can't cross my eyes worth shit, just like I said I wouldn't. Surely there's no need to go around staring cross-eyed at pictures like you hate them. But it's much more satisfying to be able to see the effect with your own eyes. Well, I think so, in any case. Stereoscopic pictures. I never even heard them until yesterday. Well, we learn a lot about them, but I wonder if it's knowledge I'll ever actually need. Of course it is. Mr. Naruhodo, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's something rather troubling here. I've noticed. A red smear, you mean? Yep, it looks like blood, doesn't it? I wondered if Susato had picked up on that. Well, in that case, we need Iris. We need to show it to her before we forget. That looks like blood. It would say it's from a gloved finger. Almost certainly a glove made of leather. Well, don't worry, Runo. You can leave the rest to me. It's purple. Simply add it to the portfolio of blood samples. Although, it would be nice to find out whose blood these different colors correspond to at some point. Well, this particular stain of blood... How could I? We don't have a known sample of the same color. Without that, it's impossible to know. Ow, wait a minute. I wonder. Well, it's true that the color doesn't help us. But what about considering how the mark came to be where in the first place? It's one of those but thou must. But thou must. But thou must. Thrice-fired Mason. You don't sound very sure of yourself the way you trailed off there. Well, it was 2 months ago now, that case, and of course I'd never met the victim, so I'm struggling to remember his name. He was definitely thrice-fired, though. The victim of the omnibus case? Yes, his name was indeed Mr. Thrice-fired Mason. But that would mean that this blood stain was left on the ticket 2 months ago. I think it was. Gina bought this ticket to Windibanks yesterday. I'm suggesting the blood stain was already on it that time. So it's a smear of blood from the time Mr. Mason was killed 2 months ago. Something else is coming back to me now. Mr. McGilded was also wearing leather gloves that night. Now I ask you, what kind of darn soul wouldn't rush to help a fellow bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about the gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand. certainly does look like a leather glove thumbprint, this mark. But we know that Mr. McGilded had injuries at the time. Had no injuries at the time anywhere in his body, from which we can conclude that any blood on the glove belonged to the victim, Mr. Mason. Mr. Naruhodo, you sound just like Mr. Sholmes. Minus the quirky slip-ups, I hope. Yes, I think you're right, Bruno. Very well. Let's make a note of this. The blood samples portfolio has been updated. Alright. Gotta go to the vault. Behind that door is the storeroom, isn't it? That's what Gregsy said. And that's where I saw that dreadful scene last night. Through that little window in the door. Face down on the floor, with Gina beside him. As the accused legal's representative, you have the right to examine the scene, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to go in the back! Don't worry, if there are clues in there, I'll find him. Poor Iris. She's clammed up completely. Iris is bound to find this difficult. After all, Mr. Windibank's life was taken in this very room only last night. Aye! Wait, Inspector! What was in there, Sunshine? You took one look at me and tried to run away. You think a Scotland inspector would run away from some jumped-up little defense lawyer, do ya? Well... I've never seen a ladyship looking like that before, is the thing. You're hiding something from us! I didn't know what to say to her. So you weren't running away from me, you were running away from a 10-year-old. I'm afraid this is all a little much for young Iris. Some gentle reassurance might go a long way, perhaps, Inspector. Aye. Don't trouble yourself unduly, your ladyship. I mean, at least you're not dead, are you? Bedside manner you don't have. I don't think that went very well. Why? Look, I'm in the middle of an investigation here, Sunshine, and I told you not to get onto my feet. And we have investigating to do ourselves. I'd like to hear more about what the socially inept inspector has to say. Oh, Hurley, and inquire into Mr. Sholmes' operation is going. So, Inspector, what do you make of the crime scene here? Sure, you got eyes, haven't you? Use them. Here's what it looks like. Nothing more, nothing less. Iris, could you lend me a hand? So, Gregsy, what do you make of the crime scene here? Oh yes, your ladyship. Do allow me to humbly explain. Last night, shortly after the hour of 1 o'clock in the morning, Scotland Yard police attended the scene. The one and only door to this storeroom was found locked from the inside. The door was locked from the inside. The lock appears to be broken now, though. Was that the police officers doing? Quite right, madam. Quite right. You took the liberty of smashing the door in, as humbly as possible. Oh. As you can see, the victim was discovered prostrate on the floor, thuswise. And next to the aforementioned body, we discovered the vile gutter child. Are you talking about Ginny? She's my friend, you know, Inspector. Miss Lestrade, the hapless girl, was curled up on the floor, dead to the world. She's still alive to now. When I saw her, she appeared to be unconscious. I'm afraid to say, she had the gun that was used in her hand. No! Presumably it's the gun that's still down there on the floor now. In a pocket, we found the key to the door as well. What? The key to the storeroom? And you say the storeroom had been locked from the inside, Inspector. Correct. All of which leaves her ladyship's friend in something of a sticky situation, I'm afraid. Obviously, my personal opinion is that all some sort of misunderstanding. Of course it is, Inspector. Of course it is. Do you know anything about Hurley? Is the operation finished? Is Hurley alright? Is he? The thing is, don't mince your words, Inspector, please. You don't mean to say that Mr. Sholmes is... No, the operation's done and dusted. It's just that, well... Out with it! Yes, ma'am. They use something called the general anesthetic. It's the latest thing. Renders the whole body insensitive. The whole body anesthetized. How's that even possible? It means a operation can be completed while the patient is fast asleep. Goodness, in the Empire of Japan we can just manage to provide laughing gas for tooth extraction. The trouble is, the latest thing isn't always the greatest thing, if you follow my meaning. I couldn't get the medication to work at first, so it took hours for him to nod off. Or so I heard. And now that the op's finished, they say they can't get him to wake up, apparently. Oh my! No one knows if it's the anesthetic still in the system, or if the bloke's just plain exhausted. But anyway, all they can do is stand back and watch until he comes round again. Hurley... The moment he opens his eyes, your ladyship, I shall get word to you. I swear it. What a surprise. Even in matters of life and death, Mr. Sholmes still has to do things his way. Inspector, what do you make of this? Oh, well, here then. Our redemption ticket for nautical deposited here, is it? Looks like someone ran out of office stationery and wrote the ticket on whatever paper was to hand. Yes, this is the ticket for McGilded's overcoat. The one that little driver turned up. Oh, actually, no, it's not. Really? Think you know better than me, do ya? No, I didn't mean to. Bruno's right, Greggsy. This isn't the same ticket. Of course it is. Of course it is. I never doubted you, your ladyship. So what's this all about then, if I may be so bold to ask? This is a second ticket. A second one? It seems Mr. McGilded, in fact, had another article of storage in here in Windibanks. Is that right? I think we need to discuss this further with the Inspector, Mr. Naruhodo. Because he's ever so easy to talk to. Getting stuff out of him's like pulling teeth. This ticket was in one of the pockets of Mr. McGilded's overcoat. Oi! You mean to tell me Yes, there was more than just the music box did, it seemed. Huh. I should have insisted on the lads taking it back to the yard and examining it properly. Well, according to the details on this ticket, Mr. McGilda deposited another article here with Mr. Windibank. Yeah, I can see that written here. A small box, was it? Do you have any idea where it is, Gregsy? Any at all? It's another article belonging to Mr. McGilda. It could be an important clue. Well, yes, I suppose it could be. Please, stop looking at me with those big turquoise eyes full of hope and expectation. It's too much pressure. I'll lose me marbles, I will. I'll go barking. Bark at the moon, big guy. Bark at the moon. This is no time for dog impressions, Inspector. That's enough sauce from you, Sunshine. There's one thing that springs to mind. According to this ticket, the redemption deadline's already passed, hasn't it? Oh yes, of course. Articles are only held for 2 months. So the small box will no longer be here then. That's right, it's been forfeited. Which means it could be on the shelves in front of the shop, where the forfeited items are offered for sale. Yes, shelves in the front. You must search them at once. You're wasting your time. There are dozens of little boxes out there. Hundreds even. We can't possibly know which one might have been McGilda's. That information's not written in the ledger. Well, I think we should at least have a look, just in case. Of course, your ladyship, of course. Very sensible of you, I'm sure. This is getting old. Alrighty. We'll examine... Out of all the articles in this storeroom, this is the only thing that shows any sign of being ransacked. Ah! What is it, Iris? That's the box file my manuscript was being kept in. Oh! Iris's unpublished story. Hound of the Baskervilles. Surely that's not what all this was about. If you ask me, so they... Without telling you. We must check inside the box at once. Yes. Ah. It was there. Iris's story was there. Well, that's good news, isn't it, Iris? Yes. I mean, of course I believed Hurley when he said he deposited there, but still, it's a relief to actually see it. Because that's not a very well-hidden frown. There's our chalk outline. Poor Mr. Windibank. He was a nice old man. Well, he was shot just once through the heart. Most likely the fellow died instantly. He wouldn't have felt a thing. No, he wasn't. This must be his blood, then. Ah! I don't like to ask at such a wretched time, Iris, but I wonder if perhaps... Don't worry, Susie. I'm ready for action! That's blue. Dabba-dee-dabba-da. Doesn't match our analysis of the blood stain we found in the main shop. But let's add this sample to the others we've already collected anyway. It's the revolver, a real one, and quite possibly the murder weapon used to take Mr. Windibank's life. What's the matter, Susie? You and Bruno look like you're about to faint. Well, it's just that I've rarely seen a gun in the flesh. And I've had issues with guns in the past. But anyway, we saw Mr. Windibank with this yesterday, didn't we? I shall have to take my own life. It must be the same gun. And last night, when I looked through the spy hole in the door to the storeroom there, that was the same gun I saw in Gina's hand. Mr. Windibank told us he only ever had a single bullet loaded in his revolver, didn't he? Well, it's empty now. The one and only bullet he had in his gun has been fired. So we can be fairly certain that only a single shot was fired from this revolver. Dong, dong. Ah! I nearly jumped out of my skin there. How could Mr. Windibank set such a wicked trap? I doubt he set it to scare anyone. Is that really the time? I think perhaps we should pay Gina another visit soon. Oh? Her trial's tomorrow. You must establish whether or not you will be defending her. Don't you remember, Bruno? You told her she could rip up the representation papers if she didn't want you to be her lawyer. Did I say that? Yes, you did. The deadline for submitting the paperwork is fast approaching. You better hurry back to the prison and talk to Gina again. Yes, this is where all the items that have been forfeited by the original owners are offered for sale. That's right, they've all got little price labels on them, but there are so many. I wonder if the small box this ticket for is still on the shelf somewhere. There are so many boxes, it could be any one of them. Mr. Sholmes said a pawnbroker's was the safest place to store anything, more secure than a bank's vault. So perhaps the small box in McGillicuddy's contains something of great value. Well, if that's the case, you'd probably have kept it locked. So then we need to find every box with a lock and break them all open. Hiya! Ow. That sort of misconduct would get you arrested. I won't let that happen. This takes me back. It's been some time since Susato-san last threw me. Alright, that is the last thing we can figure out here. So it's time for us to move back to prison. Gina, good, you're back. Oi! The police must have finished questioning her then. How was it, Jeannie? Was it awful? Don't bother me. Thank you for the papers you signed before. It meant we were able to investigate at Windibank's. Oh, right. Don't you want to know how we got on? We've been ever so busy. What's the point in asking? Won't change what everyone's saying, that I did it. That's not... Gina, we came to ask for your final decision. What decision? About tomorrow's trial. Will you let me defend you or not? I must submit the paperwork now if you'd like Mr. Naruhodo to represent you. Right, I see. She's really lost her fight all of a sudden. I know what that feels like. The worry is just so hard to bear. Oh, alright then. Blimey, give it a rest with them eyes, Iris. So come on then, fill us in. Who done it? Unfortunately, we don't know that yet. You don't say. We don't know yet, Gina. But Mr. Naruhodo and all of us know that you are innocent of this crime. And while we haven't yet managed to work out who the real culprit is, there are a number of interesting facts we have managed to establish. Oh yeah, like what? Well, for example, the reason for you being in there in the first place. I think I know now why you broke into Windibanks that night. It looks like I'm gonna have to take some evidence that clearly reveals the reason and thrust it in her face. Or I could present it to her calmly, I suppose. We found this in Mr. Windibank's storeroom. The manuscript of Iris's latest story. What? Oh, right. Well, that's good then. Curiously, the storeroom at Windibank showed no sign of being ransacked for items of value or the like, with one exception. The box file that housed this manuscript. It was you, wasn't it, Gina, who broke open the box containing this manuscript last night? You were determined to find out whether or not the Hound of Baskervilles was really there. That's the real reason you broke into the storeroom last night, isn't it? Hey! Why don't you tell us what happened? Please. We already have the representation papers and other documents we need. All we have to do is hand them to the court clerk. That is, if you'll allow me to represent you in court tomorrow. Nah, don't bother. Ginny, rip them up and chuck them, would you? Them representation papers or whatever they're called. This cell ain't fancy enough to have a bin. So what will you do in court tomorrow? I'll be fine on my own. I don't think you will be. Look, it don't matter. What's gonna happen is gonna happen. This is one stubborn pickpocket. Alright, yeah. This Baskerville story. It's the latest Sholmes adventure, right? But it ain't been printed yet. So I figured it's gotta be worth a fair few pieces of silver, right? Oh yes, at least 5,000 pounds. What? So you intended to sell Iris's manuscript, did you? No. Ginny, how could you? Whoa, wait! No, hang on! Of course I wasn't gonna sell it. All I want to do is find out if the manuscript, or whatever you call it, was really there or not. That's the only reason I was in the place. For Iris's sake. Isn't that right? We knew why you'd done it from the start, Gina. Of course we did. But I knew you wouldn't do anything mean like that, Ginny. I just knew it. Well, when I saw the manuscript in the storeroom, it reminded me of what you said the night before. Grown-ups do a lot worse than that, believe me. Barefaced liars, a lot of them. You just ain't realized it yet. I'm telling you, the manuscript ain't at Windibanks. You'd soon see if you had a look. If I'm honest, I've wondered if Hurley's telling me the truth sometimes. Sometimes I wonder if he might have hidden my manuscript somewhere. Somewhere I don't know. Even though it's wrong of me to doubt him. Oh, Ginny, that was so sweet of you. Alright. I'll tell you why I did it. Just stop looking at me like that, Iris. It wasn't because of Iris, that's not why I did it. I just wanted to know the truth, that's all. He wanted to know if Mr. Sholmes was being honest. If he'd really deposited the manuscript at Windibanks. It's like I told you the night before. I never had a father. But Iris's law ain't like mine. She's got a dad, only she can't see him. And I reckon that's gotta be an honor. That's gotta be honor. That's why she writes her stories. They're about her dad, really. That's what really sent it to me, Luck, anyway. Last night when I was listening to what you were saying, stories about Daddy? You mean they're not the adventures of a great detective, so much as the adventures of a great detective and his trusty partner? Well, that's how I see it, yeah. You're so thoughtful and so kind, Ginny. Yes, and we never thought any differently, did we? Look! Give me the rest, will you? I hate all this chummy nonsense, do you hear? I hate it. I don't trust no one, right? That's how I work. Because if you don't trust no one can let you down. So leave me alone. Don't scupper. I hadn't noticed until now, but it's unmistakable. Right there on both sleeves of that overcoat are some very suspicious red stains. What? What are you looking at me like that? I think it might be worth presenting some of our other findings in that area to Gina now. Those stains on the sleeves of your new coat, Gina. They're blood, aren't they? Not that I know whose blood it is yet. What? Blood, Mr. Naruhodo. You don't appear to have any obvious wounds yourself, though. So it could be blood that spattered from Mr. Windibank when he was shot that night. Let us not beat around the bush here. The trusty friend of mine will get results much faster than anyone else. Oi! Take it easy, Iris. Don't move, Ginny. I'm gonna shoot. Holy cow! Oh my! What the? Forget the sleeves. The whole coat is covered in it. Of course, the black color of the fabric is masking the stains. That's why I haven't seen him until now. And the blood has reacted with the chemical to turn a purple color, which matches one of the samples we've already collected perfectly. Yes, now let's see. What, the purple blood? Yes, it was the brickmaker, Mr. Mason, the victim of the murder case 2 months ago. I knew it. What are you all about? The victim? What do you mean? It's a rather uncomfortable situation, Mr. Naruhodo, but I think this makes things quite clear. It means the omnibus case is finally solved. The truth about who really murdered the brickmaker, Mr. Mason, is revealed. Oi! Would someone explain what's going on? Stop telling half a story. We can see now that the victim's blood is all over Mr. McGilded's overcoat. But in a trial 2 months ago, the defendant said this was in his testimony. I ask you, what good-hearted fool wouldn't rush to have a fellow bleeding from his stomach? I wasn't about to start worrying about me gloves now, was I? I reached out to give the man a hand. But if you look at this overcoat now, it's clear. These stains couldn't have arisen from Mr. McGilda trying to pull the victim to his feet. No, if that was what really happened, the blood wouldn't have splashed all over the front of the coat. The only explanation for this pattern of blood is that it splattered over him when he stabbed the victim in the stomach. I've tried to run from the truth for long enough, but there's no escaping it now. The true culprit in that case, Mr. Mason's killer, was Mr. Magnus McGilded. He really did do it. Mr. Naruhodo, that horrible case is solved at last. And I helped the man walk free from that trial. I used all that twisted testimony and all that sham evidence to prove his evidence, or his innocence. How could I have let that happen? Runo, did you believe him, though? Did you believe McGilded was innocent? I believed. Or rather, I think I was trying to believe. I wanted to. Because believing in those you represent in court is a defense lawyer's greatest weapon. A weapon. Before we came to Great Britain, a great friend of mine taught me a valuable lesson. You mean Kazuma-sama? Listen, Ryunosuke. We lawyers are only human. We can't know for sure what is the truth and what is a lie. Which is why we must resort to our primary weapon. An unwavering belief in our clients. That's all we really have. Unwavering belief. Only when we really believe what our clients tell us can we fight with everything we have for their cause. In any battle, there can be no victory without faith. So I believe you, unwaveringly. What's funny, Gina? Cool, sounds like in this Empire of Japan you come from. Everyone must be soft. Well, come on. Look at the mess it's got you into, believing in a bog trotter. Yes, I inadvertently helped a murderer walk free. Well, at least you learned your lesson now. Believing in people never worth it. Someone always stabs you in the back in the end. As soon as you let your guard down, you've had it. Take a leaf out of my book. Believe no one. Get hurt by no one. Gina, may I ask you something? What? I'd like to make absolutely sure. What would you like us to do with these representation papers for tomorrow's trial? How many times do I have to say it? Rip them up and chuck them away. Are you really sure that's what you want? I bet that's not what he wants all now. Mr. Armour will leave a lawyer there. Don't forget it was me in that trial 2 months ago. I lied everyone up the garden path now, didn't I? And you're telling me you can believe in me after all that? Not likely. Well, Mr. Naruhodo. Ultimately, it comes down to whether or not I feel I can trust Gina. Gina, let me say it again. Please allow me to represent you in tomorrow's trial. Aye, are you half-baked? Not at all. You've not once admitted to committing the crime, have you? What's more, I believe that you're telling me the truth. Seriously, Mr. Naruhodo. Didn't you hear of what I said before? I'm a born liar. Fibs just strip off me tongue. I'm a diver, don't forget. I pulled the wool over your eyes 2 months ago and got you in all sorts of trouble. Why would you ever trust me now? You just don't get it. Gina, I do understand why you chose not to put your trust in others. But I also assure you, there is more to this life than you yet realize. What do you mean? The world we live in is full of people you would do very well to trust. People who won't ever let you down. It's true I'm just a student of law and certainly lacking in courtroom experience. But I can promise you this. Whatever happens, and until my very last breath, I am completely on your side. What do you expect me to say to that? Then it's decided. I will take these papers now and carry out the necessary preparations for tomorrow's trial. It would be a shame to throw them away now after it's been penned with your name so beautifully. Do what you like. You Eastern lot I don't know what you are. I don't get you. with that. Gina's taken herself off to the back of her cell. She'd never admit it, but I hope she's feeling relieved. That turned out alright in the end. I think. To be continued. Whoever's hiding there, show yourself at once. Eavesdropping is the height of cowardice. Miss Susato? Somebody's there in the shadows. I can sense it. Somebody who wasn't there before. What? Blimey, you're sharp, eh? I suppose you were using one of those mystic Japanese arts, like the art of stealth I've heard so much about. If anyone was being stealthy, it was you, Inspector. Greg Z. Oh dear me, I'm most terribly sorry, Your Ladyship. I didn't mean to startle you. How long have you been listening on our conversation? Good grief! Listening in! No, no, no! I just got word there were some visitors who are refusing to leave even though it was after hours. I'll assure you, Your Ladyship, I only just arrived. This very minute, not a moment earlier. That's all it is. Nothing untoward. Nothing at all. After hours? Is it that late already? So then, I'll humbly excuse myself. Now, Your Ladyship. Ta-da! Toodaloo. Cheerio. All your best. Bye and bye. Bye-bye and bye. Someone's in sync with that. That's a lot of farewells, and not one of them appropriate for her ladyship. But I wanted to have a chat. I'm terribly sorry, but time is pressing at the moment. I see. That's a shame. If I don't get this emergency at the Supreme Court dealt with sharpish, Lord Strongheart will... Well... Emergency? Lord Strongheart? Nothing! Forget I said anything! Anyway, I'm off! Right, Gregsy, if you have to, let's chat soon. Delighted, charmed, can't wait, if you please, my pleasure. That's a lot of pleasantries, and not one of them sounded sincere. Something's up with him. Gregsy's so funny, he says silly things. It's certainly entertaining to see an inspector of the police fawning to a 10-year-old girl. But anyway, I wonder what this emergency is at the Supreme Court. We'll have to figure that out later. Thank you, Miss Susato. Kindly escort Iris home now, Mr. Naruhodo. I shall meet you there later. And so our investigation came to an end. Susato-san went to file the necessary paperwork for my defense of Gina the following day. And then it hit me. I could no longer suppress the wretched feeling that had been gnawing away at my insides. Tomorrow, Susato-san would be leaving Britain and making her way back to Japan. Naruhodo-san, it's been a very trying day, hasn't it? I do hope you're not too exhausted. What about you, Susato-san? Today's been even more trying for you, I'm sure. Mr. Sholmes was shot before our eyes, Gina was arrested, all on the back of the news that her father's fallen ill and she must return to Japan at once. I hope your father recovers soon. Thank you for your kind words. I wonder why it is that so many thoughts rage in my head like a storm, and yet I seem unable to find the words to express any of them. I know exactly what you mean. Anyway, I have one final task to complete as your judicial assistant. Once that is done, I shall make preparations for my departure tomorrow. One final task. It's just 2 months since we arrived in London, but we've managed to establish this office. I was finally feeling as though we were settling in. I would be lying if I said I felt no regret. I'm so sorry, Susato-san. It's just so sudden. I really don't know what to think. I've had no time to gather my thoughts. I know we've only been here for a short time, but in my limited experience of the courtroom, I feel I've learned something. And what would that be? It seems to me there are many facets to people's personalities. Facets? And like a jewel, the light plays off them in complex patterns, illuminating their actions and their motives. But we see only a small number of the total of facets, and what is illuminated is only a part of the whole story. What lies in the shadows? What do those facets we cannot see look like? Perhaps there are some parts we'll never lay eyes on, for as long as we live. That's so true. Sometimes I feel as though I'm blind to so much. But I keep hoping one day it'll all become clear, that all the facets will be illuminated, and I'll finally understand how everything fits together. Naruhodo-san, I suppose what matters is that we keep our eyes open and keep moving forward, even if the way sometimes seems dark. It's amazing to think it's just been 2 months. You've grown so much. I've what? Oh no, it was nothing. Unimportant. Do you know what time you will leave London in the morning? Yes, I picked up my ticket earlier. I'll be leaving at 4 a.m. I see. Well, I'll escort you to the station. Absolutely not. Sorry. I'm sure you realize why I couldn't possibly let you do that. You have a very important day ahead of you tomorrow. Gina's trial. I know, but every word you utter will have the potential to determine Gina's fate. You must get as much rest as possible. Even though, like me, I'm sure you will find it hard to sleep. But please, for me, do try. You mentioned one final task a moment ago. What did you mean? Oh my, I nearly forgot. Please, I want you to have this. It's my notes from the case 2 months ago. The murder that was committed on the omnibus. The McGilded case. It seems to me that this case of Mr. Windibank's murderer, of which Gina is accused, is very much tied up with that omnibus case in ways that are not yet completely apparent. I took the liberty of consolidating my writings about the case for you, with everything else she's had to think about. Sudato-san still managed to do this, and all neatly laid out for me in her beautiful handwriting. It was my pleasure. I can only hope it will bolster your case tomorrow for Gina. Thank you so much, Susato-san. I'll do my best to use it wisely. You really are the best judicial assistant in the world. Well, that's extremely flattering. But I'm sorry to say that I've been a complete failure. Sorry? I didn't quite catch what you said there. Oh, ignore me. I was just mumbling to myself. What are you hiding? Alright, with that, it's getting rather late. I think you should go to bed now, Naruhodo-san. I must finish packing up my things in my room. Susato-san, I wish you the very best of luck tomorrow. Good night. Wait, there's something I need to say. Hiya! What was that? A secret technique of mine. The Susato shutdown. Shutdown? Please, I implore you, if we have to voice our goodbyes, I won't be able to hold back my tears. Susato-san. And with that, it truly had been a trying day. On our feet for hours, getting Gina to open up to us, and learning the truth about the nemesis of a case. Physically and mentally, I was exhausted, and yet the idea of sleep seemed impossible. But I forced myself to close my eyes, as a cacophony of scenes of our lives here in London played through my mind. Eventually, my fatigue triumphed, and I fell into a deep sleep. Oh, what's up now? Yes, I quite understand. That is great weight off my mind. Rest assured, I shall put everything in place, exactly as we've discussed. Thank you so much. It has been an honor and a pleasure to be acquainted with you, Mr. Sholmes. On the contrary, the pleasure has been mine. I bid you farewell, and Godspeed. My dear madam. And now on that note, I'll see you guys next time.